When you can talk to people and sort of
Yeah.
explain
Yeah.
to them what you're doing.
So we're going to put the
LCP.
website link into our minutes. And also, we would like to do it in the future on our agenda. We're all set. Okay, all right. I want to welcome everybody to the Land Acquisition and Preservation Committee meeting of December 12th. We'll begin by introducing everyone in the committee. My name is Ann Kennedy, and I'm the chair.
Lisa Crowley from Barnstable.
Tracy Pratt, Katuitt.
Doug Payson, Barnstable Village.
Kate Gulliver, Hyannis.
Chris Clark, Town Council Liaison.
Liz Lewis, West Barnstable.
Farley Lewis, Hyannisport.
Ann Rowland, Centerville.
And Elizabeth
Oh, thank you. Elizabeth Jenkins, Director of Planning.
and Gina.
Jenna Zeno, Administrative Assistant.
Okay, thank you very much. So I need to read this following. Please note that this meeting is recorded and broadcast on Channel 18 in accordance with MGL Chapter 30A, subsection 20. I must inquire whether anyone is taping this meeting, and if so, please make their presence known. Seeing none. Let's begin with the approval of the minutes of November 7th. Has everyone had the opportunity to review the minutes that, again, were very well done by Gina? Thank you very much. So may I?
Motion to approve.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. So we're going to begin tonight. We are very fortunate to have with us Elizabeth Jenkins, the Director of Planning and Planning, it says on the agenda. So
Planning and
planning and planning.
planning and more planning.
Yes, lots of planning. Okay, so we're very glad to have you here to talk about our role in the local comprehensive plan. So take it away, Elizabeth.
Thank you. So technically, I am the Director of Planning and Development, but we did want to come to LAPC, and thank you so much, Anne, for the invitation, and just update this group on our efforts to update our town-wide master plan, and a little bit about how we're thinking about all of our built systems and environmental systems and natural systems through this process. So if you'll bear with me, we have a brief sort of what is a local comprehensive plan 101. I know Chris has probably seen this 6 times, but we'll take you through it quickly. So what is our local comprehensive plan? It's our long-range vision for our community that guides and anticipates new development and coordinates it with the provision of capital open space. It looks at our unique and shared values as a community and encourages balanced economic development. So we look to the Cape Cod Commission as our regional planning agency, and these are some other benefits that they lay out for a local comprehensive plan. It provides guidance to those who are doing development. It expresses our primary values, concerns, and desires, and it establishes our community preferences and expectations regarding future growth, development, and resource protection, and how to keep those things in balance. Other things, stronger supporting framework and rationale for resulting regulatory changes that might come forward in order to meet the goals of a local comprehensive plan. It'll give us a wealth of data about our current conditions as well as expected conditions in the future. And really helps to, bring together discussions like this one, where we're really looking cohesively at the mission of all pieces of our organization. Again, identify and protect areas that might be vulnerable to development going forward. It looks just not at land use issues, but also at social issues as well, and protecting that diversity, and also thinking about, again, balanced and sustainable economic development in the future. A local comprehensive plan is, I think, important and inherent to our mission statement. This is our mission statement for the town of Barnstable, really to protect our quality of life and unique character, engage our citizens, and enact policies. So by doing local comprehensive planning, we're really putting the town of Barnstable mission statement into action. So other reasons, complex issues, it helps us, again, allocate our capital funding, and a resource guide. So our comprehensive planning committee is led not necessarily by our staff. We are sort of we have a technical responsibility in this, but the individuals who are actually formulating the plan are our local comprehensive planning committee. So this is a group of volunteers that was appointed by the town manager and ratified by the council. So it is them who actually put forward a recommended draft to our town council of the plan ultimately. What goes into a local comprehensive plan? Again, we are one of 15 municipalities on Cape Cod that participate under the Cape Cod Commission and the Cape Cod Commission Act. So the Cape Cod Commission has local comprehensive planning regulations that we look to for consistency. When we put together our plan, there are minimum criteria in there minimum things that we have to have in our plan to get certification. As well as, again, we look for general regional consistency with their goals. So the Cape Cod Commission updated their regional policy plan in 2018 with an additional amendment in 2021. They also updated their regulations. So, our last local comprehensive plan was 2010 with the update to the RPP, and being it 10 years since we did a local comprehensive plan here in Barnstable. Obviously, we've seen a lot of changes when it comes to our provision of infrastructure, our housing needs, I think our refocusing on climate resilience. So that's why we moved forward in 2022 with this process. So why are we getting certification from the Cape Cod Commission? Again, I think, being certainly a regional partner and wanting to, I think, promote a balanced regional approach to land use is important. Not all issues fall within municipal boundaries. Climate change is a great example. If we're going to produce meaningful solutions, then we have to be able to think across our town boundaries. So it's good to be a good partner to the commission. But it also gives us access to a wide range of planning tools that make us more effective in being able to implement the goals and actions in our local comprehensive plan. So we're able to do districts of critical planning concern, development agreements, have the option to change commission thresholds, and the ability to do growth incentive zone, as well as greater accesses to resource and funding that come through the commission. So here are those required plan elements that we have to have. Our vision statement. So again, this is what are our shared values? What do we as a town want to be in 20 years? And we've really started this process thinking about us collectively at the town of Barnstable, but certainly we know the town of Barnstable is at 7 villages. So we anticipate vision statements and messages for the town as well as for all of our 7 villages.
I want to point that out, that was a picture of Nirvana.
Yeah. Yeah.
Barnstable Village.
Yeah, it was Barnstable, so that's a West Barnstable picture. So again, our shared values and community growth, and this is the stage of planning where we're at right now. So I'll close with some things that you guys can help us do to help make our vision statement as representative as possible. We talked a little bit about existing conditions and data. We are working with a consultant team that's helping us put this together. They've gotten our past plan, all of our past plans, including our open space and recreation plan, and are generating helping us generate chapters for review on sort of where are we at as a community today on these topic areas that we will talk about, as well as looking at where do we think we're going in the future. From that, goals for each one of the issue areas in the plan related to planning and land use, essentially answering the question, how will key challenges that are identified by our citizens be addressed by the town? Every town has to have a capital facilities plan, so Barnstable is well ahead on this. We have a very robust 5-year CIP process that outlines where our capital resource needs are looking forward, but the hope is this process will seek to better inform the priorities in that ongoing CIP.
You should probably define CIP.
Sorry, capital improvement plan, 5-year CIP. Having an updated housing production plan is a requirement of a Cape Cod Commission certified local comprehensive plan. So much like the open space and recreation plan, the housing production plan is one of those types of plans that are required by the Commonwealth. And that plan is required to be updated every 5 years. So the town of Barnstable's current housing production plan expires at the end of 2023. So concurrently with this process to start our local comprehensive plan, we have been working to update our housing needs assessment and our housing production plan. And this is essentially a roadmap to how we are going to meet our affordable housing goals in the town of Barnstable. So every community is required by the Commonwealth to aim for at least 10% of its year-round dwelling units to be deed restricted affordable. So an HPP outlines what's our plan to get us there. And it certainly goes beyond that. You know, it really looks to answer, you know, what are the true affordable housing needs in your community, and what are your strategies that you can use to get there. So we are currently in the process of updating this housing production plan. And a targeted action plan. So not just what we want to do, but what actions we can produce to meet our goals, strategies, and objectives. So an action plan might include all sorts of examples, and you all through the OSRP process are familiar with some of these. So these might be changes to regulations, ordinances, zoning, again, the provision of infrastructure and capital facilities, and how we budget that, again, housing issues, preservation of open space, and those priorities might be that as well. So those are sort of the categories, and then the Cape Cod Commission also requires us to address issue areas, not necessarily exactly as they lay it out in the RPP, but at least to evaluate the issue areas that are in the regional policy plan and decide how they're prioritized. So they break them down into 3 different buckets at the commission: natural systems, which really deal with water resources, wildlife and plant habitat, and open space; built systems, design, resiliency, capital infrastructure, transportation, energy, waste management, and then the recent amendment added climate mitigation to the built systems chapter. And then, again, community systems, cultural heritage, or this might also be historic preservation, economy, economic development, and housing. So right now, sort of what we've started thinking about is the chapters that we have in our current local comprehensive plan, and how to essentially fit these issue areas into our current current local comprehensive plan. To think about the commission, think about it in the framework the commission gives us, but also recognizing that what we're doing is we're updating our 2010 local comprehensive plan. And finally, the last thing we like to think about including in this LCP is performance measures. So how do we keep ourselves accountable to the goals and actions that are in our plan, and really have some metrics, a time frame, an immediate action plan to say, so we can continue to evaluate and say, how are we doing meeting our goals, and have really benchmarks built into our plan. So next steps in this process. So again, our local comprehensive planning committee is responsible for actually producing a draft of the local comprehensive plan to the town council for consideration and a vote. And then after the town council adopts that, we have the ability to submit it to the Cape Cod Commission for certification. And that concludes my plan and the introduction, but I do just want to take a moment and introduce you all to the Barnstable Local Comprehensive Plan website. That is barnstablelcp.com, and this is essentially our clearinghouse for all things local comprehensive plan. You have the ability to follow the meetings. We have a Barnstable Local Comprehensive Plan newsletter that we send out at sort of milestone moments throughout this. So you can sign up here. If you have any public comments, we have sort of an open public comment tool. So folks, as they interact with us through this process, a lot of times, we've been out, for example, tabling at different sort of tabling events. We've been to village civic associations. Sometimes as people see and hear about this, they have comments that they want to submit offline. So we always have an opportunity here for folks to submit public comment. Again, all of our documents that are going into the process can be found at our document library, including materials for all our meetings. If you guys are interested in events, we have the event calendar. I do want to plug, tomorrow we are in Osterville. We're hosting a follow-up open house with that Village Civic Association. We have made an effort to reach out to all of the civic associations through this process and do meetings with them. So we're in Osterville for a second night tomorrow at 7 o'clock at the library. And then on Wednesday, we have an open house for really everybody. So we'll be at the Hyannis Youth and Community Center at 7 o'clock in their community room, really just a townwide winter open house. And we'll have some fun activities set up and the ability for folks to stop in there. So those are our next two upcoming events. And again, we're scheduled to be back at some of the civic associations in early January. We're sort of running up against the holidays, but we've visited some folks, but again, want to make sure we have, for the civic associations that were on Zoom, the ability to hold in-person meetings and follow up with them. And just one last plug, I would say the best thing you guys can do to help this process right now, if you haven't, is take our local comprehensive plan survey. It's 33 questions. It seems like a lot, but it goes pretty quickly. Not a scientific survey, but we tried to keep it light and easy to take and just really give the ability for folks to talk about their priorities. So I'll leave some of these cards if you guys want to grab one on your way out. You can see it's right here on the homepage, Barnstable LCP in English, Portuguese, and Spanish. And if you could help share that with your networks. If you guys have friends and family, just have them take a few minutes out of their day to take this survey. It would be incredibly helpful to us and this process going forward.
So one more time, the website link is what?
BarnstableLCP.com.
Yep.
BarnstableLCP.
So I filled this out. Took me, I don't know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So I hope everybody here, at least, I know a lot of you already have, but if you haven't, please do. It's very easy to do.
The communications department has been great. They have a pinned post on their Facebook page, so like and share that on your networks too. That always helps. But,
So when is the survey over?
So the survey is open now. We would like to close the survey at the absolute latest by Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So if we can do it sooner, we'll do it sooner. But essentially, we have been out, not just with the survey, but with our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats sort of analysis that we're doing, really trying to gauge broad public opinion and input into this visioning plan. We would like to have all of that wrapped up by the middle of January in order to prepare, sort of allow our staff and consultants to prepare, as well as the committee to prepare for sort of a major townwide event in early February that brings it all together, really helps people start to get to this consensus building around shared values and get these vision statements drafted, hopefully in the February timeframe. But at some point we have to say we're gonna stop bringing in input, and we feel like sort of Martin Luther King Jr. Day is the date that we need.
So how many people have responded about?
We've had over 600 survey respondents to our survey. We have a townwide mailer going out this week. I hope. So hopefully that, that bumps those numbers up. But
Yeah.
we'd like to get, obviously, as
I know
many
Chris
as
has
possible.
put it in her newsletter, and when I do mine, I'll put it in mine.
Great.
And Gina, I hope you will put it on our agenda as a link. Is there any questions for Elizabeth?
Elizabeth, I have
Kate.
a question.
Oh.
I'm Doug Pace, and I attended the program in Barnstable Village. I still, I keep going back to when there were individual village vision plans, and I felt that that was really effective.
Yeah.
How are you going to kind of incorporate in the town's plans the 7 villages?
Yeah, I get that question a lot because I think the process in getting to sort of the townwide plan and the 7 villages plan was a little bit more disconnected the last time that we did this. So, I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself and speak for the committee because ultimately I think these will the decisions that they will make. But, I think what we do want to assure people is that there will be the priorities of all 7 villages separately articulated in these plans. I think when we launch this process, when we think about how we do our capital improvement plan, how we do our budget, how we generally function in terms of government operations is we're making town-wide decisions. So we wanted to start there, but absolutely, we know in the plan, that village identity is so important to people.
Yeah.
So I think it's a matter of, thinking about our different issue areas in the plan and outlining our priorities, not just as a town, but how those specifically translate into each 7 village. So there's a little bit of an organizational challenge there. Yet, I mean, I'll admit, we haven't clearly tackled it because we haven't necessarily had that conversation with our committee about how that's going to be drafted. But I know there's been a lot of questions about that because I do think, it sort of started with village plans and then, there was sort of a townwide plan done on top of that last time, where this time we're sort of doing it all collectively together. But
The
yeah.
individual villages is what makes Barnstable so special.
Right.
So we have to accept that and applaud that and
Right.
celebrate that.
Exactly.
yeah.
And that's what we keep hearing again and again
Yeah.
through this process.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's the type of feedback that
Yeah.
we really want to listen and hear and make sure gets reflected in the plan.
So Kate, you had a question?
Yeah, how much weight are you giving to the public input? Is it going to be, are the decisions going to be made based largely on what you get from the surveys, or are they just going to be kind of looked at and not taken?
Yeah, I mean, so when I think about master planning or local comprehensive planning, I mean, I think it's at its core, I mean, entirely a process that's based on public input. I mean, this is our one great chance every 10 years to be able to try to connect with as many people in the town as possible to talk about what's important to them and what's the priority to them. So I can't speak for all 14 local comprehensive planning committee members, but I can say all of them have been incredibly supportive of the outreach that we were doing and participating in all of that. And, we'll have it all sort of synthesized into a report. And I think it's that report that gets used, in the work to, again, do this consensus building to create the vision. And then this vision, acts as this capstone for all of the goals and objectives and actions that come below that. So, I mean, I would say this is, at its core, a process that's meant to be driven by public participation.
And so do you feel that 600 is a good number, or is it disappointing to you? I mean, it sounds like a very low number to me. Are there other ways you can reach the public to get more input from them? Or also, will you get more input? You say there's going to be a draft, there's going to be something in February. Could there be more public input after that? Can there be more input after you've written a draft that's going to be submitted to the town council, so that you're taking public input all along and it's not just getting pushed to the wayside?
Yes,
as the process
so
goes forward?
I'll say this. So, I mean, the survey is important, right? Because it's a sort of a standardized set of questions that we can have as many people answer as possible. Yeah, we'd like to have double the number of responses, at least, that we have now by the time that we're done. But it's not our only outreach effort. I mean, our theme in outreach has been to try to connect to people where you are. I mean, very frequently what we find, especially coming out of COVID, is that people are less and less likely to come to a public meeting at town hall. So we found the need to be much more creative to find ways to connect with people. So again, that's why we've been directly to all of our village civic associations and done small group exercises with them. So we have those comments, and these are just a couple of examples of some of the other ways we've reached people. So we call these tabling events, where we set up a table and take comments with people. We've been to the Barnstable Adult Community Center. We've been to Hyannis Open Streets, doing short, what we call intercept surveys. So like here are 3 questions, as well as other activities there. We tabled out at youth soccer tournament at the community college. We held Friday coffees throughout the fall to meet people in the villages. We were at trick or treat on Halloween, connecting with people. So we've tried to give people multiple ways to participate in this process. So if maybe somebody isn't going to sit down at a computer and spend 5 or 10 minutes on the survey, at least we found other ways to get out in the community, ask them a couple of questions, make them aware of the process, and we think we've been getting some good feedback in that way as well.
They were at the Barnstable Village stroll in the rain.
I wasn't.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I was.
either.
These are really credit to the fantastic people in the planning and development office. I mean, they have been putting in a lot of time, really going out there and trying to meet people. But we also know that as much time and effort as we can spend on it, if all of you can take a moment and get 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 people to take the survey, we hope that sort of amplifies our reach and our effort by partnering with others in our community to get the word out. And really sort of explaining a little bit why it's important. That's why we do the tabling events. We could certainly put up a poster, but when you take a minute and just say, hey, this is to look 10 years into the future, what's important to you for your town and the place where you live, we feel like that's much more effective in getting people to take that proactive step and click the survey.
So anybody else have any questions? Chris, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I just want to make a mention that the planning staff will be coming to the West
I have no
Barnstable.
idea what she's saying. You got to talk up.
Sorry.
Yep.
The planning staff will be coming to the West Barnstable Civic Association's annual meeting on January 17th, the day after Martin Luther King Jr.'s.
All right.
But the meeting is open to the public, and you're welcome to hear what they have to say and have some input at that time. And secondly, I would like to applaud Elizabeth and her staff. I think that they've done have been very creative and energetic in doing this early outreach. And I did mention that it was a very different experience when we did the town's open space and recreation plan survey. And I think that this is, I applaud for a very robust outreach. And bumping into the holidays, I know that makes it more challenging.
Yeah,
thank
we
you.
had hoped to be sort of wrapped up by the end of the year, but it's so important to go talk to those civic associations. And again, we'd like to get way more than 600 on this survey. So we can't keep going forever, but we'll keep going until we and do as much as we can.
I have a couple questions if nobody else wants to ask. When you present this to the town council, do they have an opportunity to change anything? Or do they have, is there going to be a public comment and discussion at that point? And would any individual councilors be able to raise motions and change any of the suggested direction? Yeah,
so I mean, I think the way we typically do in a planning process like this is, before a document gets to that final approval process, that, we've put those drafts out for extensive public comment. So I'm sure we'll do that with our first chapters, our vision chapter and our existing conditions chapter. So once we have those chapters drafted, obviously we've had a lot of public input coming into it, but to Ms. Gulliver's question, like, are we accurately reflecting everything that we've heard through this process? So that's why we like to make those drafts available for review and comment. So we'll do that ahead of time. Again, both for the benefit of the public and town council. And then, of course, I mean, if town council thinks that there is something that, again, doesn't get accurately reflected, or maybe, needs to be relooked at or prioritized, we hope that as we get closer, we'll have that feedback and that participation of all of them throughout the process. But ultimately, if there are things or priorities that need to be adjusted, like, it's fine for this to be a back and forth process.
Very often, human nature is once people start paying attention, once there's a final document, and they're like, oh, oh no, this is it? This is what's going to happen? Right. So that's when you start getting people really comment.
And the council has been fantastic, actually. They invite me in once a month, first council meeting a month, to give them an update on the process and where we're at. So the hope is that by keeping the council engaged and the public engaged on a regular basis, they can follow that process as it goes through. But yeah, I mean, I also think it's important to note that the council, they are the ones that, finally decide what goes in our plan. And, even though we're going out to the Cape Cod Commission for certification, I mean, this is a town of Barnstable plan and priorities. I think there's concern and fear that we're looking too closely at the commission's plans and not really closely listening to our residents enough. And I just want to assure people that ultimately, like, our fealty is to our residents and to the town of Barnstable and what they express
throughout this process. It doesn't have to necessarily agree with the Cape Cod Commission's priorities either.
Yeah, I mean, again, they lay out a very general framework for consistency, but ultimately, I think it's about accurately reflecting the views of our residents and our citizenry.
So related to that, how does the existing open space and recreation plan and housing plan and the town council strategic plan, how do they mesh with this?
Yeah, that's, I mean, such a great question, and one that we're talking about a lot right now. So I think ultimately with our smaller issue area plans, as we are doing our evaluation of existing conditions, we tried to approach this in a very rational way, which was to go through our 2010 comprehensive plan and try to catalog all of our progress in terms of all of the goals and actions in that plan. I mean, there are hundreds. So I think we went through that work, but the feedback we got from the LCPC at the last meeting is like, how can we summarize this in a more meaningful way? Not just going through the table, but what have we made true progress on? What isn't relevant, and what haven't we done that was a priority? So I think as we do that, looking at looking at the open space and recreation plan for some of that guidance in terms of how we interpret the 2010 LCP is important. And then certainly I see this plan coming back when we dig into those issue areas that I put up there on the screen. So we haven't talked exactly. We're just starting to talk exactly about how we sort of organize the process and the product that comes out of phase 2. But I imagine that we will have what do I even call it? Well, we have a session on open space, and so that would be a great time to give the committee these goals and objectives, these actions, and so they can really take in this and have this plan as the foundation for setting the goals and setting the actions that go into the local.
Perhaps we could be alerted when they're having that discussion, and one or two of us could come to that and observe and maybe comment.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Farley
Lewis. I just was wondering how the survey results are tabulated in terms of demographics, and who has been responding to the survey, and how's that breaks out?
Yeah, let me see if I have that in my document library. So at this point, really the only survey results that we have tabulated are an overview of those demographics, and I don't know if that made it up here yet. But, oh, no, these are comments. But I can, sorry, I don't have it here. But I can share that with you. We did break down our responses to date by demographics. We're definitely missing younger people. So far, we'll be at the Youth Commission this week. We hope, and we just sent it out in the virtual backpack. We're definitely missing young people. We're missing second language speakers. I think we only have 8 Portuguese responses so far. We're missing men. The majority of our respondents are women by a 2-to-1 margin. So we did provide the LCPC with that breakdown. I'd be happy to share it out with this group as well.
So that helps you know who to reach out to, right?
Reach out to,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
and what strategies we can use
Now,
to do better.
Elizabeth, the town has seen a fairly dramatic increase in population. Do you have any sense of how large that is?
Well, so no, I mean, we have the preliminary results of the 2020 census. Thank you.
Wasn't that accurate?
Yeah, but I mean, whether or not, I mean, that certainly gives us a picture that we do believe we have seen an increase, and you know, we have some other data that have come into that. So, I mean, in the 2020 census, we were 45,000, and in the 2020 census, we were 48,000. And we can sort of see by looking at the precinct maps where growth, thank you, where growth has happened and where attrition has happened. So we have sort of a snapshot of that, but I think we all know, you know, the 2020 census might not be the most accurate picture going forward. So we'll continue to look at those American Community Surveys as they come out. You know, there was just a recent article in the paper about voter registrations and how those have changed. So we have some other data points that we're looking at to try to supplement the 2020 census.
Yeah.
And yet we've seen a demographic collapse of young people.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can definitely say by, you know, both by data and anecdotally that, you know, we did see a lot of people who were second homeowners in Barnstable become year-round homeowners, which is why I think we've seen maybe a modest population increase, but a larger increase in voter registration. Not as dramatic as you think, but yeah, I mean, we are by all accounts losing that 18 to 24 age group.
Yep. Any other questions?
I would just like to remark that when Elizabeth comes to speak to the town council, all those, you don't have to watch the whole video to get the information, that you can either read the town council minutes or the town manager's report, because the PowerPoints are listed. All his reports are listed under the town manager's tab. His comments or his report to the town council and the accompanying presentations. So if you want to flip through the PowerPoint, it's accessible that way.
Thanks. Yeah, or sign up for that newsletter on barnstablelcp.com. It's just a great way to get
Did
the
you
latest
ask that
update.
the PowerPoint be attached to our minutes? Is that what you asked? If you didn't, that's what I asked.
I will make sure that Jenna gets the PowerPoint and we
Okay.
can attach to
Thank you.
that. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yes, regarding population, the school population, it's down, right?
I don't have those numbers right in front of me, but yeah, I mean, it definitely took a dip during the COVID years, and we've started to see that rebound in the latest year. But school enrollment in the public schools did drop in 2020 and has started to inch its way back upward.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because a long time ago, when my kids were in school in Centerville, there were 4 first grades. My understanding is now they have almost like 1.5.
First grade in Centerville. Yeah, I'm not sure of those specific numbers, but what I can tell you by looking at those numbers is, school enrollment was pretty steady before COVID. I mean, what you're seeing in the school numbers is a dramatic increase in English as a second language and foreign-born students.
Yep.
When you look at their demographic breakdown in our public school, it's very eye-opening. So they have started to, again, the drop that we saw everywhere in public schools nationally during COVID, but the latest numbers had the school enrollment back up. I don't want to say to pre-COVID levels, but much closer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Well, thank you very much, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
How do you see LAPC interacting with this process?
Yeah, so again, I mean, sign up, you have the newsletter. We can certainly reach out when we get to our open space section. Lindsay Council has been fantastic and has agreed to sit down with us and go through from the CPC perspective and sort of help tell that story of open space acquisition over time. But we'll reach back out when we get to those sections in our chapters. Originally we did have somebody on the committee that overlapped with this committee, and unfortunately that didn't work out. But we're happy to continue to be here and continue to liaison.
Farley or I would be available at any time to sit down and talk to you about how we can interact a little bit better.
That'd be great.
And also, I would like to have you back. I know you have to go to planning, but I'd like to have you back next month, and we can talk a little bit about the open space and recreation plan and our next steps in that regard.
That would be fantastic, because I think we get this question a lot, is sort of, and maybe Chris asked this question actually at our last, or no, it was Felicia at our last meeting, is, how do we successfully balance going through this big townwide planning process and also continue to sort of do the implementation work that's in our current plans. And I think, especially, I think open space and recreation plan is a great example of a community-informed plan that has, goals and priorities and objectives and actions that we continue to look at and rely on even as we go through this process to update our long-range plan.
And we're anxious to get going on a few of those items, so.
Great.
But we need your input.
All right, I'd be happy to come back.
Great,
All right.
thanks.
Thank
very
you.
much.
I'll leave some cards on the table on
Yep,
the way
we'll-
out.
we'll
Please,
take them.
Please grab a couple.
Thank
Yeah.
you. All right, so our next item was a discussion of the proposed committee name change and the update of the committee's charge. Farley, Alyssa, me, and Chris have met on this issue. I also reached out to Jessica Rapgrassetti, our former liaison, because she was initially involved in the first few discussions we had pre-COVID. But I have not heard back yet whether she has any input as to what changes we made. But can Farley or Alyssa or Chris summarize what we went over the other day? Go ahead, Farley.
Honestly, when we met, we had the proposal that had been written primarily by you, I believe, and
I think it's
Jessica. Okay, so we reviewed it, and I thought we were pretty much all
Happy with
together.
what we had.
Yeah.
What we had, for the public's point, and also the rest of you,
Yeah.
is initially Jessica and I and the former committee did a lot of work on this, but then COVID hit, and we went into the Zoom mode, and so we didn't really have an opportunity to discuss it the way that we should have been able to. And so once we've started this process again, we sort of batted it back and forth, the three of us, four of us, and then came to a draft, and then tightened it up when we last met, and then we sent it off to Jessica. So we haven't shared it with you all yet because we want to have Jessica's input first, and then we'll send it around and have a discussion about it probably next month. Okay? Basically, we are suggesting that we change our name to Open Space Committee, which better reflects what we really are. And we tightened up the charge to reflect what we really do. So we added we added a little bit more to the walking trail part of it, and added the education piece, and tightened up the Santuit management piece just a little bit. And so that's basically what we did. So does anybody want to add to that? No?
No, I think that the origin came from Jessica, Jessica Rapp-Grassetti, Counselor Rapp-Grassetti, and she will be term limited by this time next year. So in deference to her, and I think she was the one who crafted that original language.
Wow.
When we realized that this committee,
She wasn't the one that,
oh, sorry.
but she was instrumental in it, yes.
Okay, but since this committee is not empowered to doing any land acquisition, we thought that it was wasn't correctly reflecting the work we did, and Farley did in fact call or check the other towns about the. Can you please share what you found?
In reviewing all the towns on the Cape, in terms of their committees, there are only 5 that don't have open space committees. Everybody else does, so.
Yeah. And most of those towns have an open space committee member as a representative on their community preservation
Right. Yep.
committee. Yeah.
Which we finally did get after years of
Yes.
trying.
We have one now in Farley, but she's
As
not
a-
assigned as the open space
No,
representative.
I'm at
She's at large, which is fine.
At least we have something.
So, okay.
Yep.
Anything anybody else wants to add to that? So update on outstanding conservation restrictions. There's no update other than what we said last time is Wakeby has been recorded, I believe. So there's really no updates from last month. The update on the Pathways Project, Doug Payson, Alyssa Farley, and I met with David Anthony and Grace Rogers the other day. And I was very pleased to know that Grace Rogers has been assigned as part of the asset management team to physical property, natural property matters. So open space properties. She's going to be going through the properties that the town owns to find out what the status is, what has conservation restrictions on it, and which do not. She's going to work with the grant writer in trying to parse through some of the grant opportunities that are available and see where that would fit in. She did point out, as did David, that one of the issues of the town is that we can get a grant, but we have to have the personnel to actually utilize the grant. So that seems to be the problem. But we'll work through that. Doug, do you have anything you want to add to that? I know that, you were...
I felt it was a productive meeting. I did have an interesting thing happen to me yesterday. I was walking over the area where we're proposing to put the bridge where the wetland is, and I was picking up branches that had fallen down, and the woman who lives on the other side of the vernal pool yelled over and said, "What are you doing there?" And I said, you know, this is a public trail on public land purchased with public funds.
That was interesting.
She didn't say anything.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
Alyssa pointed out that in that particular area, it might make sense to have the bridge actually be arched. Go ahead.
Well, either arched or somehow off the ground,
Ground.
so the
Oh,
water
yeah.
could be, because
So the
right
water
now,
can
the
flow through.
proposal looks like it's right on the ground, I think. the
Yeah, like a
picture she showed
boardwalk
me.
rather than a bridge.
Yeah,
Huh.
So I
I
think,
thought you had showed me before, when you showed
Yeah.
me pictures.
so we're going to watch for, Grace is going to tell us when the Conservation Commission has its hearing about it, and one or more of us will go and
Yeah.
talk to them about how we see that this should work. So, what else do you think came up of that?
Well, I think the staffing issue is kind of critical. It seemed to me for a long time that you're seeing grants announced all over the Cape, and this town isn't on that list.
Yeah,
And it sounded to me like it was a staffing issue, that they not only don't have people to write grants, but they have no one to execute when they receive the funding. So
Yeah.
I think that's problematic.
yeah, that is problematic, so we have to,
The town does now have a grant writer
yeah.
with the planning department. And on another issue, I ran into Grace Rogers, and she said she was with you today.
Yes.
I think you should share that.
Oh, okay. Well, Lisa and I met with AmeriCorps representative, is her name Phoebe?
Phoebe, yeah.
Phoebe. And Grace Rogers today, and we did a walkthrough at Bridge Creek to, get things set up for the work that the AmeriCorps is going to do for us, hopefully
The who?
later.
I'm sorry?
Hmm?
The what?
The work, the trail work that AmeriCorps is slated to do for us on the 23rd of December.
Okay.
So anyhow, I had a nice walk in the, what do you think, windy, kind of snowy. It was fun.
So we not
The
only-
GPSing the trails. They're updating the GPS.
Oh, that's.
They didn't do that
No,
today.
not
No,
today.
that wasn't part of it. This was just,
Well, they're going to.
they are going to, yes, right. So anyhow, so we're in process with AmeriCorps, and I thought it was very productive.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
when we
so-
used to have Will,
Well,
he did a lot of that for us
yes.
I know.
before he moved on.
I miss him every day.
Well, one thing David Anthony did say is that we were going to utilize AmeriCorps a lot
Yeah.
more effectively and more often, that they owe us quite a bit of hours, so they will be using them for the trail system. So I think that was good news. The other good news, Phyllis, I meant to call you, is that he will prioritize getting a meeting for Santuit management. We pointed out to him that it's been over a year or 2 years, and that now that we've worked 3, 4, we have worked so hard to get a management plan put together that now we're not following that plan, which he acknowledged and said that he would reach out to the Mashpee side of things, that one of the problems was that they didn't have their citizen representation.
Well, I think that's minor.
Yes, that's what we said too, that we could forge ahead with the committee members that we had. He also suggested that Tracy, if he was interested, to start getting up to speed on Santuit issues, so that you could work with Phyllis to be the representative from this committee. Okay?
Fine.
Okay.
Oh, good.
So, you know how I did that? You notice how I did that?
Yeah, that was,
But anyhow, so, thank you. So I thought that was a productive meeting also. So I will follow up on, make sure David follows up on his
fine.
promises and see how far we get on that. So, but anyway, I think we're going down the right direction, that we have somebody that actually will be working with us. So, that's good. So,
I just have another comment about
Yes.
our walkthrough today. We were talking about doing some bridges or boardwalks through a couple of different spots in
Oh,
Bridge
good.
Creek. So Grace was going to check and see what could be done or what, permits had to be issued or whatever.
oh, well, I think maybe with this Tracer Bridge,
Yeah,
that maybe the hard work's been done, and so we just replicate it elsewhere.
oh,
You
well,
know,
that could be.
Why reinvent the wheel?
That's
you know?
true.
So we know how to do a notice of intent, and so we know what construction we need and what materials we need, et cetera, so it shouldn't be that hard.
Okay.
We'll see, but shouldn't be. So,
But not bad.
nothing up, no update on Centerville Cranberry Bog. I keep it on the agenda just in case.
I haven't heard anything. I do ask my son.
I think it's in litigation, so we won't know for a while.
I won't know until.
Twin Brooks, I know there is an update on Twin Brooks.
Yes. Well, we're waiting to hear from the Cape Cod Commission. I believe it's on the 20th of this month.
Yeah.
And to see, what their findings are with the developers.
No, that
No,
doesn't do any good. You
okay.
have to talk louder.
Waiting to hear from the Cape Cod Commission on the 20th of December, and we'll proceed from that. And we're also still holding informational meetings in the towns. We're
Oh.
working on some in January. Katuitt is next on the list, and so we're making progress with that. And we're getting some good turnout at the meetings.
Okay, are the meetings just in, on that side of the Cape, or do you have them on the north side too?
Well, the other one would be Barnstable Village, so that's next too.
Let us know when, you're planning to have them
Okay.
in West Barnstable and Barnstable, so we can let other people know.
Okay.
So I am starting my newsletter back up
Oh, yay.
in January, so,
And I always like
yes,
that.
Mr. Payson, keep that in mind.
Yes.
So, all right, so what else do we have? The update on the open space and recreation plan, we just talked to Elizabeth about that. We'll hear about that more next month. Do you have anything to say, Phyllis or Tracy, about Santuit? Yeah, Tracy, go ahead.
Yes, Structures and Grounds came in over the Thanksgiving, over the weekend, and did the trails over there.
Oh,
They were there for a day. They did quite a bit of work on that bog to the north of the Hollow Road, which had not been on the purview in previous years, so that's navigable now. And everything's pretty clean.
So everything's working pretty well there, too?
Yeah, it's the hunting season. I mean, the deer season ended on Saturday, so
did?
everybody was out. Everybody was careful for the last 2 weeks.
Right through the month.
So who has been assigned to that, DPW, or is there somebody?
It was my contact, or the one that was a guy named Joe Marshall Phyllis.
Yes.
Who was it?
Joe Marshall.
Oh, Joe Marshall, okay. Because that was one of the other things David Anthony brought up was with Chris Ganella gone, he had to assign somebody.
Some administrative work, that's an elected position. It isn't something that's appointed.
Oh.
He was elected.
Oh, okay.
Chris or Joe?
Chris Ganella.
How about Joe's? What's,
Joe's is appointed by the head of DPW.
All right. So, Farley, do you have anything to tell us?
Regarding the last CPC meeting, there had been a letter of intent from a developer over in the Comaquid Heights area, a parcel on Oakmont Road, that he wanted to have this town purchase through CPC funding, and it was not approved. Basically, it never even came to a vote.
Right, nobody made a motion?
Correct.
Yeah. Was there anything else in relation to open space?
No.
Okay. How about the COMM?
Yeah, well, right. So the COMM Fire District requested the sum of $200,000 from CPC so that they could pursue the acquisition of land, or, yeah, I guess it was essentially for land that could potentially add to their watershed. This would be to support any legal efforts that they needed to mount in order to purchase the land. So CPC was a bit, stepped back a bit, and I think they recommended offering them $100,000 instead of $200,000 for this purpose. So that's as far as I know.
So the amount was?
Originally, 200,000.
200, but it went to
The ask was 200,000. The give was going to be
100,000.
100,000.
So, and the rationale was so they could act fast if there was
Right. Yes.
an opportunity. And they wouldn't have to come back to the committee for a specific ask.
Right, or, yeah, exactly, or, go to the voters to request.
So, I thought the discussion was interesting,
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
Did you review the tapes on that? Or-
to give them money without a specific project.
Right,
But-
yeah, but, right. So-
And, you know, other fire districts have not taken advantage of that opportunity, so. Yes, Chris?
I think they should. I mean, for opportunities where land comes for sale. There are professional services, not only legal, but engineering and, I forgot, there's a third type of profession, surveying work.
Yeah.
That needs to be quick on the draw instead of waiting for a monthly CPC meeting. And I had a meeting with the town manager today, and I showed him part of the town council's, what is it? Annual.
Strategic
plan, yeah. And that it says our quality of life is part of our mission statement, and usually the execution of it is protecting our drinking water. So I think we need to be more aggressive about preserving what we have and acquiring land for water before it's gone. I mean, in 100 years from now, 200 years from now, the residents of Barnstable will say, what were those municipal leaders doing?
Yeah.
That they let all this land that is qualified for preserving our drinking water, let it go.
So as long as there's a way to, you know, categorize or document how that money is used, I agree that it's probably a smart use of CPC money, but I worried a little bit when I heard it that you give the money and then you don't know what it's used for.
Well, if I may, the CPC, I believe, gave $1 million to the Housing Trust.
Well, again, and I'd like to know what they use that for too, you know?
I'm just saying that it's a bank.
Yeah.
And it'll be documented, it's in a public forum. But I'm just saying, I think that to support the mission of the Community Preservation Act, that there might be this undefined money for quick action.
Eventually, it needs to be defined, that's all.
Well, that would be a question on the Oakmont Road property. Isn't that adjacent to a well
It
field?
is up to, yeah, the fire.
That was,
district,
they actually did approach the Barnstable Fire District about it, and the fire district said they had to expend money on purification of the water, so they did not have the funds to purchase it. And because it went from the housing department, housing authority to a private developer, and then that private developer came to I think what happened was, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the community was upset and went and tried to strike a deal with the developer, and so the developer presented the deal to CPC, and that's why I think the long way around about it was the reason why I think it wasn't, there was no motion. People wondered why there wasn't a more direct approach to the CPC, and also why the community itself was not ponying up some money. So I think that's my understanding. So is there any other, anything else we want to discuss? We have a report from our town councilor.
I'll be brief. Speaking of water, there are 18...
Can you talk into the microphone? Thank you.
Speaking of drinking
Not that
water,
I can hear any better, but other people could. Probably.
there are 18 acres of undeveloped land for sale across the street from the West Barnstable Community Building. It's owned by the Burke family, and there's a horse farm there. The house and the barn and the open space is for sale together. But I have been lobbying the town manager, and I zoomed into the Hyannis Water Board meeting to suggest that they consider utilizing that for water, since in the town's plan for finding potential future uses for water for the Hyannis water system, probably to be named something different someday. The number one spot was the Bridge Creek Conservation Area. So I've been lobbying the town manager and others to say, look, it is a rare opportunity that 18 acres of undeveloped land adjacent to the number one place you want to drill is available for sale. And it won't be for long. So, it's in discussion, and that the next Hyannis Water Board meeting, which is appointed by the town manager and advises the town manager, is not selected by the town council's appointments committee.
Or elected, it's not elected.
Right.
Right.
Because we own it.
Yes. Because the town of Barnstable
Town of
owns the...
Barnstable owns
yeah.
the water system. So this would be to drill for water that would deliver water to the ratepayers. And the thinking is that perhaps those along the way, wherever they place the pipes, might have an option to get municipal water that will be filtered. So anyways, it's a suggestion of mine. It might not go anywhere. But by going to the Hyannis Water Board, I was suggesting that they request an appraisal and at least get a real number to start negotiations. And it may not fall apart. It may not be, it may not be realized. But right now, the asking price while that property is for sale is high. And if an appraisal is done, then at least they'll have a little traction. The what?
I said, you find out if you have an independent appraisal done.
Yeah. So I said a body like the Hyannis Water Board can recommend to the town manager that he go to the CPC and ask for money for the appraisal for water.
Correct.
Yep.
So the money's there for those kinds of uses.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful piece of property, and that barn is brand new. You know, if they could figure out a way to utilize the barn and the paddock for some use in the town, it would be great. And there's a house, so they could actually have a property manager. So it's a beautiful piece of property. It's worth lobbying for.
And that's at the same time as the Twin Brooks meeting.
What?
Same day and time as the Twin Brooks meeting.
Oh.
December 20th at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, well, everything's piling on at once.
Yeah, I
That
know.
meeting is Zoom, the Hyannis Water Board.
So do you have anything else to add, Miss
No,
Town Counselor?
making enough trouble.
Does anybody else have anything to add?
Motion
Yes,
to-
Miss Liz.
I just want to, and I sent you and Chris an email about land that's come available via Brenda Try's property there on 6A. That's about 7 acres, and she's got a couple barns back there.
Backed up to the community
College, she's in,
Oh, that
yeah,
property.
behind Dr. Finney, and anyways, some of that land, looks like it can be purchased separately from like the parcel that has the house. And
Yeah.
So, and it does back up to the college and the trail system. So-
Yeah, that would be a nice piece of property, too. I haven't done it yet, but I plan to forward it to Lindsay Council and the town manager, and just
And I don't
for
know,
their,
you know, it's a failed septic system in there, and like it's, the house is,
That'll slow it up.
yeah, a wreck. So I don't know who, you know, there is land back there to be
Yeah.
developed, but.
it's a nice piece, too, and it has a connectivity
Yeah.
to land that we already own,
But I mean,
as
it's gonna
does the
need a-
parcel that Chris is talking about.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it does need a cleanup back there.
Yeah,
But it's high.
yeah, it's high, and yeah, it's a,
not low, it's high. You're
Yeah.
not, I've been there. I don't think there's any, creeks or
What?
water runoff areas.
no.
It's just a nice high land.
Is it walkable, though? I mean, could it be part of a trail system?
Oh, yeah, there's
Yeah.
no trails.
I mean, well,
per se
there is, like, if I go over my stone wall, I can, access the trail that goes to the college.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, well,
does-
thank you for forwarding that information.
Okay, thank you.
So anybody else have anything to add?
No.
No? All right,
Move to adjourn.
pardon me?
Move to adjourn if nobody.
That's her job. That's Phyllis's job.
Oh, well,
She dropped the ball.
she did. Well, no one's saying anything, so.
All right, so Phyllis, why don't you second that?
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Favor?
Aye.
Just everybody.